Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Horn Call podcast. My name is James Bolden. I'm the publications editor for the International Horn Society and your host. In episode 29, my special guest is Brett Hodge, a brilliant young horn player who is principal horn of the Omaha Symphony Orchestra and also third horn of the Grant Park Festival Orchestra. Brett has a number of performance accolades under his belt already, and I think he's just going to be one of those players that you're going to continue to hear great things from. On a personal note, Brett is going to be a guest artist for our Louisiana Horn Day in January 2023. You can check out our website for that if you want to find out any more information about it. But Brett has got a lot of great ideas and philosophies related to not just horn playing, but to music and life in general. And I think you're really going to enjoy my conversation with Brett Hodge. Okay, yeah. So really excited to be talking to you today. We're kind of, virtually meeting, and we'll get to see each other in person in January of 2023. But thanks so much, Brett, for talking with me today.
Of course, it's great to see you via a computer screen.
Yeah, it's kind of the way of the world these days, but it is convenient, though, I will say.
It is. It really is.
So, Brett, you've got an amazing, pedigree and performance background, but you just seem like a really nice, down-to-earth guy. But maybe we could start with talking a little about your musical background, like how you came to the horn. And I'm always interested in everybody's, path, where everybody's so unique, and we're all playing this, curly-looking brass instrument these days. But how did you get there, and what were some of the things that happened along the way?
Yeah, so I originally started on piano at the age of 6. Both of my parents are actually retired. My dad was a high school band director. My mom was an elementary music teacher. So I kind of was baptized by fire, if you will, and thrown into it. I actually wanted to play percussion whenever it came time to start a 5th grade band. And my parents took one look at each other and they said no. And so they brought home a Con 6D was my first horn.
Okay.
And it was great to start out on a double horn, and I played. I think I was pretty good as an elementary, middle school student. And I started taking lessons in middle school, and then it kind of took off in high school for me.
Sure.
Where I realized that was the one thing that I really wanted to do.
Right. Right.
I attempted to play basketball, but that was not my thing. But moving on from there. I ended up going to University of Missouri, Kansas City, and my first teacher was Ellen Campbell there. After my first year, she unfortunately passed away. And then my second year, we had kind of some people in and out. We had Tom Baker, Bob Bowermaster, Bill Barnowitz, a whole slew of people come through. And then, Marty Hackleman got the job for my last 2 years there. And so I only have a bachelor's degree, or I like to say barely a bachelor's degree. I'm not totally convinced that they let me graduate otherwise. If I but academics were not my strong point, but that's okay. That's why I wasn't there. I originally started as a music ed and performance major.
Oh, okay.
And, I got kind of through that halfway point where I didn't like having a clarinet to my face. And I am not the greatest conductor. I can, and I have some ability, but it's, I didn't want to do that. Okay. I wanted to focus just in the practice room on the horn.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my teachers pulled me in his office, and he said, "So I think we should have a chat about you dropping your ed degree." And that's not something that you generally tell everybody. And he and I have joked many times since then. He's like, "Hey, you remember that time that I told you to drop your ed degree? Yeah, I think that was the right thing for you to do." But it was kind of pivotal for me because I had taken my first audition at that point, which was for the Kansas City Symphony. So it was really nice just to have my first audition at the age of 19 be right there.
Sure.
And I advanced, which I didn't expect anything. I had no idea what the process was like. I was just there, and I did it.
Well, it's kind of freeing going in if you have no expectations about, what's going to
Yeah,
happen. It's like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. We'll just go with it. Yeah.
yeah. You kind of start at a high point, and then you can either keep going higher or you can go lower and then work your way back up. It's all very situational,
For
but
sure.
that's kind of how I started.
Okay.
And I grew up in St. Louis, so
hmm
I had the fortune of singing the symphony, playing in the youth orchestra, and a whole slew of great teachers and performers in that city that I still go back to this day.
hmm
And I've had the fortune of playing with them several times, and it's been great to go back and see where my origins come from.
That's
Um,
such a good orchestra. That's, I
oh,
mean,
it's
it's
an
like,
incredible orchestra.
yeah.
Yeah, this summer I got a call to go play one of the operas. Somebody got
hmm
sick. Hey, can you come play this opera
hmm
tomorrow with 132 pages to learn? And I thought, oh great, I'm gonna be playing fourth horn. No, hey, you're playing principal.
Oh, wow.
But it was great.
What was the show?
It was called Harvey Milk Reimagined.
Okay.
It's kind of a redone version of the first Harvey Milk opera that came out, I want to say in the 90s. I don't know
Oh,
exactly
okay.
the origins of it, but this is the reimagined version.
Oh, interesting.
Some,
Okay.
some changed music and things like that. It was
Okay.
very, very unique and hard. I had one performance that I sat through, kind of just as
Just to
a
follow. Yeah.
shadowing, yeah, and then had to do a couple shows, no real rehearsal. Drop right in, it was fine, but yeah, that's kind of the gist of my background.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. A couple of questions kind of occurred to me while I was listening and kind of absorbing what you were saying. Was there at some point, you mentioned kind of, the it was kind of in the cards for you to go into music at some point, but was there ever like a light bulb moment where you were like, okay, this is the path I want to follow? Or was it kind of a more gradual thing where you just kind of, by process of elimination, it's like, well, I don't think I want to do that. And I don't think I want to do that. But then this is the path that's kind of before me. I mean, I think for a lot of people, it's some combination of those, like a light bulb moment or light bulb moments, but then other things.
Yeah, I would say that there were definitely a couple defining moments
Okay.
that have brought me to where I am today. The first one being, in high school, getting into the all-state band, all-state
Right.
orchestra, those kinds of things. That was kind of the catalyst, the first catalyst
hmm
to push me in that direction. And I'm very thankful because Missouri has one of the great all-state bands and orchestras,
hmm
and it was awesome. And there's still a lot of lifelong friends that I met doing things like that, and we've played together. We've gone on to do a lot of other things together too. And going on from that point, I didn't really know what the life of a performer looked like. I lived
Right.
with two music educators, so I knew what marching band and what an elementary music school
hmm
classroom looked like. A little different than
Sure.
what I do, and that's what I thought my life was supposed to be.
hmm
And once I got into the orchestral realm a little bit, I learned more, and I said, "Well, I'm going to give this a try." And then,
hmm
you start to learn. Oh, there's excerpts that you have to learn. You have to do this. You have to do that. There's so many other things that you don't necessarily have the time to be taught
hmm
whenever you are younger. Of course, you will learn something that for the audition for the youth orchestra, or a few things here and there, but you don't
Right.
have time to really dive into the repertoire.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that was something that really intrigued me, and I had to learn how to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit different of a process, and it's not a cookie cutter thing.
Right. Right.
Everybody's different.
So at any point along that way, did you consider a career outside music? Was there ever like, oh, I might want to be a surgeon, or were there other things that sort of like, okay.
No, um, no, I didn't have any real interests in other
hmm
things. And like I said, they kind of shaped me as I went along as
Right.
well.
Right.
So it changed. I changed with the way that these things happen to me,
hmm
and I still do today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess that kind of transitioning into the next kind of series of questions. So, Marty Hackleman is just like renowned as a great player and great teacher. What was your experience like working with him in your last 2 years at UMKC?
Yeah, so we had a great time. We really did. I definitely learned a lot, and I wish I would have had a little bit more time with him, but at that time it was just the right timing for me.
Right.
I had won my first per service orchestra position while I was in school, and I won my first full-time job, which was with the South Dakota Symphony, which actually ended up being like 80% wind quintet, which is great. There's not many people who have had a position like that. And I will say that there was a lot of benefit to that, because repertoire that I was able to learn that you don't get the chance to do.
Were you there just after Ryan Gruber?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I was at Wisconsin with Ryan briefly. We overlapped a little bit.
Ryan's a good friend of mine.
Yeah. He's a good guy.
Yeah. No, I was there from the tail end of 2014 through beginning of 2016.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. And then I won my job in Omaha right after that, and I've been here since 2016. And then the spring of 2017 is whenever I won the audition for Grant Park, which is just the summer. 8 weeks long and difficult festival, but it's great. I love it.
Yeah. So did you mainly like hit the orchestral audition repertoire pretty hard with Martin Hackleman? Yeah,
we really did a lot. Everything, actually. But I was one of those people in my last 2 years of school. I was taking 1 or 2 auditions every month. And whether that was a good thing or not, I learned a lot from myself. And the way that I like to see it is that I was really hungry for what I wanted, and I had to go out and figure out how to do that. And I would bring things into him, and he would be like, "Okay, try it this way," and then he would play it, and I would try to emulate it, and sometimes he'd be like, "Great," and sometimes he'd be like, "No."
I've had lessons like that. Yeah.
But that's how I learned the best. Was just purely by listening, and then I would go out and do the score study myself. I had to learn how to do that. Sometimes when people see that there's an excerpt on the page, they don't realize that there's other things that are happening. And so I was one of those people where it's like, oh, great, you know what? This is just horn alone. It's solo. That's not how that worked.
Right. Yeah.
But no, Marty and I got along really well, and he's still a very close mentor and friend of mine. And we keep touch all the time.
Yeah. Just a tremendously successful teacher and performer. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and he just retired, and I'm very thankful for everything that he did for me and still does for me. But I also have a lot of other really great influences in my life. The people in the St. Louis Symphony, I go back and I play for them. Todd Bowermaster, Thomas Joslein, Julie Thayer, Roger Kaza, they are, those people are my heroes.
Yep.
And I am fortunate enough to call them not only friends, mentors, colleagues, but they're huge influences. And there's other people too that I have colleagues and friends that are doing things that are huge, and you kind of pull a little from everybody. That's where I am right now. It's just I learn from somebody else. I need to fix something with my playing. I ask somebody else. It's not the inundation of 10,000 opinions. It's the searching out the 3 or 4 that are the most valuable to you for that specific instance.
The ones that matter, for that particular thing. Yeah. There's no shortage of opinions out there. It's finding the ones that are gonna be important. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess kind of, it seems like you had success early on with the audition circuit, and kind of built on that success. But I'm sure along the way you arrived at like, this is my process from hearing about the job ad to getting the excerpt list to, walk us through that, because I feel like that's like you were saying, there's not necessarily a set curriculum unless, if you have the fortune to study with someone who's a really successful orchestral player that's won lots of audition and coached lots of audition winners. There's not really, a place you can go to say, okay, like 6 months out, here's what you should be doing. 3 months out, here's what you should be doing. What has been your process that's worked for you along the way of just gearing up for these auditions?
I used to have a pretty specific process where I would label things as I would use 1, 2s, and 3s.
Sure. Yeah.
However, I don't do that anymore. I've come to the point where for me it's more about the music rather than it is just about learning, getting it under your fingers. As a younger player, I saw more value in something like that.
Right.
It was, I really need to learn this and just get it there. And that did work in some ways. But, I kind of had this slump where I started out really well, advanced in a few auditions, and then I went down. Where there was a while where I didn't advance at all. And, I was one of those people where I had to send in that CD before the prelim round.
Right.
I had to go through that process. Sometimes it doesn't matter who you have vouching for you. You still have to jump through the hoops. But you do that enough times, you get enough experience, then you start to slowly go up and you figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, your pre-audition routine, your day of, during the audition, post-audition, everything is so subjective.
Right,
and
right.
I don't want to say that there's one particular way that I did things that is what I call my own. Things evolve and things change.
For sure, yeah.
As me as a player, right now I'm doing a lot of restructuring in my own playing just because I know I can do better.
Okay.
And I want to be better. And, I go out and I do recitals, master classes, and workshops because not only is it good for me to do those things, share, but I think it's important to show students that, even professionals have to work on things.
Right. Yeah.
Not everything is going to be perfect. And I'm okay with that. Even if I don't like sharing an imperfect product, there's still some value to it.
Right.
Somebody is going to find some value. And that's kind of the way that I saw these auditions is I saw value even if I didn't advance. I still went and I did it.
Right.
I absolutely hated taking low horn auditions. Because I didn't love the music. Where, first and third auditions were kind of my bread and butter, and I always did really well in. And I had to figure that out. The process is way different. It's
right, yeah.
So, but I saw value in that, and I didn't want to necessarily label myself as a high horn player or a low horn player, even though I most definitely did at one point. And I try not to now, but my high notes pay the bills, so that's kind of the thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, so you mentioned when you were playing in South Dakota, you were doing a lot of wind quintet playing. Was that something you had experience with before, or when you joined the orchestra, you were just kind of presented with, okay, this is now a big part of your duties in the orchestra? These like community engagement, like runouts and educational concert type things.
Yeah, I had some experience with wind quintet. I played in them all through college. And
okay.
We did what I call some of the standard repertoire, which is good. It's stuff that you have to do and you need to do. But it was not until that I actually got into the position that I figured out, hey, there's a lot more than just the Nielsen.
Right.
You have to do things that are crowd pleasing. You have to do things that they don't teach you in school. They don't have the time to teach you in school.
Right.
Pop's repertoire. It is extremely important that Pop's repertoire is in, not necessarily our audition list or anything like that, but you have to know how to do it because quite honest, that's really what pays for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, we're taught the masterworks, there's
Right,
so
right.
much that is out there that is actually more important to fuel what we really do.
Right. And then sort of like, how to build a program, how to build like an educational concert. Those are, I think the most progressive system I've seen is like, believe it or not, in the military groups, they teach you how to do that stuff because, the military has these quintets and you win quintets and brass quintets and they send them all over the place. And so they actually, they give them training and that sort of thing, which is kind of interesting because you don't necessarily get a lot of that at the college level.
No, you don't. And like I said, you just don't have enough time.
Right. There's so many other things. Yeah.
And I do regret not having a master's degree sometimes, not all the time. But even with the higher degrees, there's still not time to do some of these things because there are so many other things that you have to fit in there.
Yeah.
And I think the ultimate goal for a lot of people is to win an audition.
Right.
But I always like to reiterate that having an orchestral job is not the only career out there. Not just for amazing horn players, but for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
A good friend of mine, Chris Castellanos, plays in Boston Brass.
Oh, yeah.
He and I have had this conversation. The guy is an absolute freak on the horn.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the way he does that. He doesn't need to play in an orchestra. He enjoys it. He comes and plays with us sometimes whenever he has a free week, very seldom. But that I think it's important for people to take a look at that and say, wow, I can do this. I can be this creator of whatever I want to do. Yep. And I've embraced that lately, actually, even though I do have orchestral jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And do I want more? Yeah, I do want more. But I think it's more of a learning experience right now. It's just that if I can do these things, other people can do these things. So why not?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I've not looked at your new website yet. I just saw. I think you shared that it was up, but the old website looked great, though. I mean, I can't imagine if the new one looks better. I'm sure it's pretty amazing. But that's part of it is like developing your professional persona outside of like the group you play with, like you as a solo artist or you as, a chamber musician or stuff like that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because you do a good bit of solo playing, and you're going to be doing a solo program here. So maybe kind of, once you've got the job that kind of like, okay, I can pay my bills now. And so now where do you go from there? How do you develop this and how do you, explore the other interests that you have?
Yeah, that's a really difficult but also easy question to answer.
Okay.
I think everybody, once you get to the point where you're comfortable, you always want more. But you also have to remember that there's more to life than just driving yourself absolutely mad, practicing the excerpts, doing these things, and all things that will just make you go crazy.
Right.
And so I chose to kind of take this solo route, not in an effort to be the next great horn soloist. I'm not the next Barry Tuckwell. I'm not anything like that. But I have something maybe different than what he had to offer. And I'm still learning what that is. And I like to do these things because I like to bring a very human aspect to these kinds of things. Because I like for students and even other professionals to know that it's okay to not be perfect, but the fact that there is some value to be grasped. And I think everybody sees value in something different. And I just like to tell people my story. And I competed in the international horn competition in 2019, second prize. I learned a lot from that. I'm not what I call a traditional soloist. If you watch me, I will walk out on the stage, but I'm pretty calm. I'm not one of those people who's just like, I'm really happy to be here. My face doesn't emote that. I'm just like, I've got a nice, upward motion on my eyebrows.
Right.
And I'll do a nice bow, but I'm not one of those people who's just going to run out on stage and just show that this is super, super exciting,
Right.
because
Right.
it is exciting for me, but I just show it differently. And,
Uh-huh.
like maybe my feet were not planted firmly together like this, and my toes weren't pointed the correct direction. To each their own.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was there because I wanted to push myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I had other teachers who had competed in the past and won. And it was good for me. They always encouraged me to do things kind of out of my comfort zone. And that wasn't out of my comfort zone. It was just different.
Right.
But also, the other thing too is having a full-time job and preparing for something like that.
Oh gosh, yeah, yeah. How did you make that work?
That is a darn good question. So I was actually preparing for it basically the entire summer while I was working at Grant Park. And
Okay.
if anybody knows anything about the Grant Park Orchestra, is that it's a full schedule. We do have 2 days off a week, Sunday, Monday, but Tuesday through Saturday, we're doing 2 different programs, sometimes 3, depending on what's going on, doubles. It's just one of those where we work.
Uh-huh.
It's not it is, quote, a summer festival just because it happens during the summer.
Yeah, yeah.
It's 10 solid weeks of work.
Yeah.
And I was going home in between services, doing whatever I could to prepare Strauss 2.
Yeah.
And, things like that. And it's difficult. Your musicianship can only serve you so much. You have to actually take the time to learn certain things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you learned Strauss 2 when you were 16. It's going to be different whenever you are, I don't even know how old I was at that time. I think 26 or 27, whenever it's going to be different.
Right, right.
And I had to take that time, and I have no idea how I crammed it in, but it was a busy 10 weeks. And then 2 weeks after that is whenever the competition happened.
Sure.
And, listening back, there are things that I will definitely do differently now, but at the same time, it was a great experience. It was a learning experience, and I didn't go to win. I'm not that person. Any one of my friends that every time we go to an audition and I think like, I did okay, it wasn't the greatest, blah, blah, blah. They'll turn and be like, oh, that means he did a heck of a lot better than, but I'm not out, for blood or anything like that.
Right.
That's just not my persona.
Uh-huh.
And I like to remain calm, collected, maybe on the side of, well, things didn't go as well as I wanted them to, but I think that's because I still feel like I can do better.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a completely normal feeling that everybody should know exists.
Yeah. So what did you play for like the prelim, first, second, or final rounds for the international horn competition?
I did. Let's see. It was the first movement of Mozart 4 and En Forêt, and then the second round, I did the Messiaen, the Interstellar Call, and España, and then for my final round, I did Strauss 2.
Okay. Were you just totally sick of those pieces by the time you got to the competition, or were they kind of where you wanted them to be? And
yeah, I wasn't sick of them. At some point, I feel like you need to leave a piece for a while. You hit a little bit of an artistic wall. And finding that sweet spot of being over-prepared versus under-prepared is kind of difficult. A lot of people think that the more you prepare, the less nervous you are. That's very subjective to the person. And I felt that I could play Strauss 2 note perfectly. I didn't play it note perfectly, but I felt I had some value and some singing to what I gave. Do I think I could do it better? Of course. But in that moment in time, I gave what I had. And that's important. It is very, very important. But going forward, doing what I do now, I feel like I know where my sweet spot is for preparation versus performance. And I even have kind of a built-in time schedule where I usually give myself about 3 weeks of leeway, because I know something's going to come up. I'm going to have a gig. I'm going to have something where I'm not going to have a ton of time to practice. So that's my safety. 3 weeks is my safety.
Okay.
From start to and I feel like that's me. Other people might need less time. They might need more time, but that's the built-in for me.
Oh, that's cool. So do you have plans to do to compete in other solo competitions like ARD or anything else like that?
I'm too old now.
Oh, for ARD? Oh, wow.
I mean, by the next one, I'll be too old.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just turned 30 this year. So,
okay.
I mean, they don't want us old people anymore.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't think I knew that. Yeah, that's interesting.
I believe there's a limit.
Okay.
But that's okay. I don't necessarily feel like I need to compete. I don't feel the need to compete with people anymore. I feel like the younger version of me might have said that. But right now I'm competing with myself.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's actually more competitive competing with myself than with other people. And it's kind of a weird phenomenon. I was just talking to a friend about this the other day. When you are taking an audition and maybe you're the one backstage getting ready to go out on stage and you're listening to somebody out in the hall and you're sitting there, you're sweating, you're like, oh my gosh, they sound so good. I have no idea how they sound that good. I don't sound nearly like that. You get out there and you're freaked out because you felt like you just heard somebody play everything absolutely perfectly. Well, there's a filter there. What they played isn't necessarily perfect. It's got the beautiful part of it. You weren't in the hall. You weren't listening to that.
Right.
And so for me, I had to learn that I might be able to go out there and do the same thing, just maybe slightly different, and feel, and to the committee's perspective, maybe sound better on something.
Right.
That's one of those subjective things, but
well, it's all in the mindset too. Like,
it's competing with yourself, not with others. Even though there's a very strong case to be made that if you do say, I'm going to win this audition, you are competing with others. But at what point do you ask yourself, okay, did I do the best that I did today?
Right.
Some days it's yes, some days it's no.
This is true.
I mean, but to be honest, I'm at the point in my career where if I don't ever win another audition, that's fine. I'm completely content doing other things, doing solo projects, playing chamber music. That's awesome. And it took me a while to get there because, you're always in search for something new, something more.
Yeah.
I felt like I have what I was originally searching for. And of course, it would be great to be principal horn in whatever top 3, top 5, top 10 orchestra, but it's not necessarily everything. And here in my job, I have a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility, and it's great because I feel like whenever I go and do something, I can always bring something new back to my colleagues.
Right.
And you can do the same thing for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks for that. So I guess maybe sort of like stepping out, just out of the just horn lane of things. So who have been and who continue to be your inspirations, like musical or otherwise? Are there, colleagues in the orchestra or other, players on other instruments or singers that you really look to? And this can be, other people that aren't even musicians that are inspirational to you.
Talk about a difficult question.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. So I don't know that I necessarily have what I would call, a list of 10. I grasp at certain concepts from other musicians, from other people in other realms that are not music. I find that when we listen to something in its entirety, we form opinions too quickly. And what I do is if I hear something I really like and I want to imitate, I will stop it right there and I will go back and I will listen to it. Exactly just that chunk. Because I know if I go further, sometimes I'm going to hear something that I don't like, and therefore it might invalidate what I thought earlier about this passage.
Huh.
Yeah, so that's why I don't necessarily prescribe to just one person. I prescribe to concept.
Right.
And it's hard. Of course I like some pop music. I'm gonna listen to the rest of the new Taylor Swift album today.
I have a former student who would be all about that. So yeah, okay, yeah.
That kind of thing is important.
Yeah. Yep.
It really is, and I feel I can relate to students that I have if I stay up on the terms and all of these things.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It is so hard.
Well, it changes so fast. It's really hard to keep up. Yeah.
I also feel like nowadays there's so many more distractions in daily life. Even I graduated from UMKC in 2014, 8 years ago. That's not that long ago, but those 8 years, there has been a lot that's happened in the world.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like the students that are in that position now are in a very formative place where not only are they dealing with world events, or they're dealing with the invention of TikTok and what do they call it, doom scrolling. And of course I'm definitely guilty of it, just like everybody else. Yeah. I've caught myself being like, wow, I just spent an hour doing this. Oh boy, I could have been I could have unloaded the dishwasher, done 17 loads of laundry, that kind of thing. But I feel like, going back to what I was saying earlier, it's the concepts that I feel I can relate to more than just the specific individual. I can name 20 different things that I like from 20 different people.
Right.
But it's going to be consistent across the board. I'm not going to like the way somebody slurs. I'm not going to like the way that person articulates.
Yeah.
I'm not going to like the way that somebody sounds on this piece, but they sound amazing on this piece.
Right.
So it's a conceptual.
But that's human. I mean, that's part of the human experience, is like we're inconsistent, unpredictable creatures. I mean, and that's totally okay. We're human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I enjoy that rather than saying, "Oh my gosh, this one person is my specific idol."
Yeah, like the guru mentality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
In today's day and age, there are too many resources for us where, we have the internet. We can listen to 25 different recordings of Strauss too.
Yep.
We can do that. We have the access to it. Is it necessarily the best thing? Maybe. Also, maybe not. And I feel like that has kind of contributed to more of a homogenous sound.
Yep.
And I kind of pride myself on having many different qualities of different things. Growing up playing a Con 60, and then I moved to an 8D. I played an 8D halfway through college. And I feel like that's where my roots are, sound-wise. My concepts, I think of the singing through that. We all have the movies to thank for a lot of this.
Oh, yeah.
But if you listen to somebody who really plays a specific type of instrument very well, not only are the qualities there, but there's other things that you can grasp from there.
Yeah.
And I learned that when I shifted to a Knopfrap style horn, that I still wanted to have those specific qualities, but I needed to bring something else in. And so that's kind of how I've formulated my sound. And, even until recently, I was on one horn, I just got another one, and I'm learning it, and I'm figuring out, I wanted to bring specific qualities from these other instruments. I still have them, still love it, but I needed something else because I wanted just something slightly different.
Are you the kind of player that, like, basically you play the one horn in the orchestra and chamber and solo, or do you have different instruments that you like for different venues?
I am the one horn person. I feel like that serves me the best. However, maybe that's just because I haven't had the need to have multiples. Obviously, I've got the specialty instruments,
right,
the descants, all of that, and I think it's really fun to just play on a single F horn. But there's also something to learn from that too, but it's also great to play on a single B flat, and it's great to play on the descant. To me, it's more about versatility and being able to do it than having to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So maybe someday I'll have 17,000 horns. I mean, 15 isn't enough, so
right. It's Josh Johnson, don't you?
I know Josh very well.
Yeah, I figured you would. Yeah, he is the grand master of having a bunch of horns, but he sounds great on all of them. But that's funny. Shout out to Josh.
He subs here with us in Omaha quite a bit. He's not too far from here.
That's cool. Brett, thanks so much for talking with me today. Really looking forward to seeing you in person at the Horn Day we're having here in Louisiana. Is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with? I'm not exactly sure when this is going to go out. This is being recorded in October. I usually try at some point in these recordings to make mention of it so that if I get to this a couple of months later, it's oh man, it's been 2 months since I recorded this thing. It gives me inspiration to make sure and edit them more in a more timely manner, but I'm not sure if I can make any promises about when this is going to go out.
I don't know. That's okay. I think the ultimate message that I want people to receive, not just from me, but from performing, from learning, from doing whatever you do right now, is that there's no reason to be afraid. And I see a lot of young players, and I was one of these myself. There's no reason for you to be afraid to play. There's a point whenever in our careers that we are constantly searching the validation from others, because essentially when we go take an audition, those people are validating our playing by hiring us or advancing us at least. But once you get past that point, yes, and a lot of that is just because maybe you haven't developed your musicianship yet, and I'm still working on this. I'm still working on technique. It's constantly a work in progress. I'm not going to be the same player that I am tomorrow, but I want people to not be afraid. And once you hit that point, when you have something, maybe scale it back, and you don't have to seek the validation. And like I said, I am completely guilty of it just as much as anybody else is. But I have found that recently, if I'm looking for somebody to listen to something, it's for a very, very specific reason, not just a general, wow, you sound great. If I send something to somebody and I say, hey, can you listen for this?
Right.
That's the kind of feedback that I have developed myself. It's more of a personal style. Yes, it's great to play for people. And if you get nervous playing an audition, it's awesome to play for your friends, play for your family, make yourself feel awkward, do those things. But take that step back and remember that you have somewhere to go, but there's no reason to be afraid of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.